Hello. This is Christina Brown. You're watching Black Tea News. Hello. Welcome to Black Tea News. I'm your host, Christina Barr, and it's a pretty big news day. Particularly, well, I guess it started yesterday while we were on air and things were developing as I was talking to you guys. So I knew that they were voting to get rid of McCarthy, who was the Speaker of the House, and Matt Gaetz put that in order into motion because he was mad at him for reasons, and he was able to oust him with a handful of Republicans, but mostly Democrats. But Matt is the one who initiated that. Some of the reasons and people who I wanted to oust McCarthy don't make much sense to me, but we'll I guess go through it. And so we have no Speaker of the House. I mean, we have someone who's standing, in the meantime, but they have to vote for a new speaker. And it's kind of a big mess, and the Democrats are here for it. They are happy to participate, and it just looks like incompetence and chaos on our part. Sure, it certainly does. But there's people cheering on Matt Gaetz, and there's people saying, like, what is your actual plan? And I kind of fall into the what is your actual plan kind of territory. Also, Mark Dice called Fox News last night during a news report, and not the kind of news report that you should probably call in on there, but I saw it live as it happened, and my mouth hit the floor. And I think Fox News should be able to, screen calls better. So we'll talk about that. And also, Pearly Things, is still on Daily Wire as far as her marriage debate. And so she still wants to have a debate between the red pillars as herself and some other guys who are anti-marriage or complain about marriage versus Daily Wire, which I don't think that Daily Wire would probably feel like they get a lot of merit out of that particular debate, especially since if it was on Pearl's platform. And I think she's kind of farming for engagement with a lot of her takes. But Andrew Klaven responded to her, and at least in a tweet, and I wanted to share it because I thought it was really good. And this some of the responses that I saw in the comments, and then people who I've responded to, just kind of highlights her audience and her appeal. And I don't know, it seems like they're disgruntled men who dislike women. So we'll go from there. So before we jump into it, I'm gonna encourage you guys to go to blacktnews.com, check out different content on my website, different articles, different videos, etc. If you like what I do here, please consider leaving a donation at blacktnews.com/donate. Cost to stream, cost to run my website, all that stuff, so you guys can support in that way. I appreciate you very much. There's links in the descriptions on Facebook and YouTube. If you want to give on YouTube, you guys can send super chats. If you want to do on Facebook, you guys can send stars. I don't know why they demonetize me in other ways on Facebook, but they do still allow the stars. So check out different merchandise that we have at blacktnews.com, different t-shirts, different mugs, etc. that you guys can pick up. We got this Roe Casey stuff, aborted shirts, which I made when that announcement came out. They're dated. It was overturned on the day of my sister's birthday, so I guess I'll never forget it. Also black tea mugs and other things is like that. And also check out some of my books that I have available on Amazon. One of my books is, of course, God is blatantly against abortion. I saw someone ask Michael Knowles a question about that topic, because I guess they're going to have a speaker that was going to come to college and debate how abortion is a moral thing, even from a Christian perspective. And Michael Knowles answered the question fine, but I'm just like, I wish I didn't know when that was recorded because I saw it on TikTok, and I'm like, Oh my gosh, I wish I could go and debate there and push back and against that narrative. So anyway, I wrote this book because I saw a need for it, and so I recommend that you go ahead and check it out and read it. And it covers theology, covers rights and science, and all kinds of different stuff. By the way, I saw a post today that was interesting. I shared it on YouTube. I didn't share it anywhere else yet. Let me see if I can find it really quick. But it was a Democrat journalist, and someone just took an old tweet of theirs and compared it to well, two tweets of theirs, and one was about Roe v. Wade and one was about COVID, and it just really highlighted a lot of sentiments that I saw. Um, because a lot of people were like, "Shut up, get back, don't kill your grandma," blah blah blah. Some people were even saying things like, "Go ahead and mandate it." And this person's tweet is from like 2021, which is like in the midst of a lot of I don't know the um height about it, but it's in September, so I felt like it was kind of dying down for most rational people at that point in time. Um, but I guess not in their case. And so he said we need to have mandatory vaccinations, which is crazy. Okay, I found it. Let me go ahead and share my screen so you guys can just see it for yourself. Um, but this is a sentiment that I ran into a lot, saw a lot, debated with people a lot, particularly on TikTok because I was bigger on TikTok than I was in other apps at the time. But he said enough is enough. Make vaccines mandatory. And again, that was from September 9th, 2021. So it I wouldn't be for it if it was the beginning of the year, if it was at the end of 2020 and or January, February, March, April. But we're talking about September. Like, bro, at this point, right, that even if you take the jab, that you can still spread the virus. So uh, um saying it's mandatory is pretty nutty. And then he said in another tweet, the only person who should have control over your personal medical decisions is you, not politicians. You hashtag bans off our bodies and hashtag Roe v. Wade. So it is interesting to me. Now people get upset would get upset when you compare these two and they're like, no, they're totally different. And like, yes, there's a chance that if I'm sick, I could maybe get you sick and then you could maybe die. Depend your comorbidities contribute to that. There's a percentage I can give you depending on your weight and age, etc. But in most cases, you're going to be fine. You might not even know that you're sick or have it or whatever. So likely scenario is that you're not going to die as opposed to an abortion. Like we're talking about an accidental, you might die. Very slim chance. Versus I am going to kill you and plan this out. and you're a defenseless little baby. So what can you do about it? So if the government had I mean we've already been through this, like pretty much the Supreme Court decided a long time ago, a court case dealing with vaccines and said that your bodily autonomy isn't 100% absolute, especially when it comes to someone else's life hanging in the balance or whatever. So that's why they feel like they could mandate some things with some vaccines on the state level. But I don't understand why people would feel so strongly about that, but not feel like, oh yeah, the government totally has a place to tell you that you cannot kill the separate life within your body, because that is a different, you have your life, they have a heart and limbs and other things, and you're obviously killing a human being, because that's why you want the abortion. So people have the wackest, weirdest ideas. So I saw that today. I just wanted to share before I went into everything. So I want to start off talking about Mr. Dice and what he did. So last night I was at my parents' house, and I came over for dinner, and my sister made her chicken tacos, which are really yummy. and she was watching Mean Girls because it was October the 3rd. And that's the day that Caddy asked Aaron Samuels he asked her what day it was, and she said October 3rd. So that has been known as Mean Girls Day. So they're playing, well, I don't know if they were playing it somewhere. She was watching it on demand. So I hadn't seen it in a while, so I sat down and started watching it. So after that was over, I think by the time that was over, um a little bit after that, rest of my family came home from the movies, and Fox was on, and we just started watching Fox for a little bit, and they started doing this news story about a shooting, and they were waiting for information, and it's kind of weird at that point when you're live on the air and you're waiting for information, and everything is just speculation. And I just thought it was a weird news report anyway, because they're trying to figure out what's going on. They're giving you like information like, okay, it's not an active shooter situation anymore, but they say there's still you stay in place order, so you can't like go out or whatever, because they're still investigating or whatnot, and they're trying to figure out what happened um, in the first place, because there's some kind of festival, so they want to know how it kind of evolved, and so they're just kind of, I don't know, filling airtime as they're waiting for this breaking story. And so I'm observing it, and I'm like, this is weird, because they are just kind of throwing stuff out there. So um, then they said they got a student on the line, and they wanted to talk to them about what they saw. And so I'm thinking like, okay, if they're not on the ground actually investigating themselves, like how do they know that this student is legit, like what they're saying is true? Because they might be spreading some kind of rumor, and then we hear it from Fox, we're like, we heard it on the news, and then we start talking about things that aren't true. And it's bad enough when it's on social media, but I'm like, this is, I don't know how I feel about all this kind of evolving live on one of the biggest news networks in the world. So um but the first kid that they talked to, the call like dropped immediately, and so they're like, okay, we're gonna try to get him back. And it, and then they tried again with someone named Tyrone, and I guess I don't think Tyrone and the call that dropped immediately were the same person. But when Tyrone got on the phone, I immediately knew this person wasn't Tyrone. And perhaps you could say that, if you want to say I made a stereotypical observation, it just kind of didn't sound like a Tyrone. And it went downhill from there. So there's the backstory, and here's the report.
And we've got Tyrone on the phone with us now. Tyrone, when you say poker game, what exactly happened? What transpired?
Well, first we were watching, we all get together every Tuesday night, and we watch Tucker Carlson's show on X. We used to watch him on Fox News. Obviously, he's not there no more. Mm-hmm. And still being the most credible guy in the media in America, we always get together to watch Tucker Carlson, and I think he's doing probably better now that he's not with Fox News, because the corporate media always controls what the teleprompter readers are able to say. And now that he doesn't have that hand,
thank you, Tyrone. Maybe we can work to get Don back on the phone. Tracy, we can get that. Clearly, that was not a student at Morgan State University.
Yeah. So I saw that I was sitting right next to my older sister Katrina. My mouth dropped, and it was just pretty crazy, because literally before all this transpired, I'm thinking, how are they making sure that these people are actually students and telling real things that happen? And Mark Dice, Tyrone said it had started by a poker game. Like it seemed like a pretty irresponsible way to run the story. So them getting pranked like that was I guess validation of my thought process. And I know people screen calls and have people live on situations like that, but obviously they didn't screen the calls very well. Now Mark Dice does prank people fairly often, so he has some experience, I suppose, in getting behind those, past those line of defenses. But oh boy, that was embarrassing. So not very kind of inappropriate prank at the time considering the news coverage. I'm going to read you what Mark said. But when I did talk about it later, at least on TikTok a bit, I did say that it was I funny because again that it kind of it validated the way my concerns about how Fox was running the story. And so let me go ahead and share with you guys what Mark actually had to say about it. And I've seen Mark go on lives and with questioning other stuff, and like sometimes we'll spend a lot of money for a super chat or whatever. So he'll get his side out if he wants it out. Yeah, that was me who culture jammed Fox News live on air. While shootings of any kind are terrible, and it's important to inform the public about a potential danger, cable news always exploits tragedies in order to keep viewers glued to their screens and fill the airtime with anything available to them. In this case, some random caller whose name and identity they didn't even bother to verify before putting on air as someone who supposedly knows what really happened. So that's his explanation, and for I guess why he did what he did. And I saw his explanation after my initial thoughts. So I'm not trying to justify what he did or anything like that, but I hope Fox News learned a lesson. And I can't really disagree. I guess I don't disagree with his reasoning or at least what he's pointing out, how these news channels are trying to fill up airtime, because that's what it really felt like. And again, they didn't verify him and the facts, and I was concerned about that because they have a responsibility, especially when there's something like this going on. People take shootings very seriously, and especially at universities and schools and other things like that. So them not verifying that Mark Dice wasn't Tyrone, and they didn't even know that he wasn't actually not a student. It's just irresponsible. They got caught with their pants down. So of course he brought up Tucker Carlson because Fox, fired Tucker Carlson. And they still got like their legal battles and stuff, and Tucker is a name they dare not kind of say. So Mark throwing in Tucker, I don't know how much Mark actually likes Tucker or not, or how much is that just pouring salt into their wounds. And they could have definitely got him off earlier, because none of the conversation lasted that long, because that whole clip was like 42 seconds, so it wasn't long. But I knew immediately immediately that it was a troll. So I'm not gonna say kudos to Mark Dice or anything like that, because it, you know, but I guess he showed him. Moving on. So there was a big battle yesterday that occurred between Matt Gaetz and McCarthy. And Matt Gaetz, I guess apparently has been planning with Democrats to oust McCarthy, and then he got it together. Which, by the way, there's been some memes going around that are kind of funny that I suppose I would share with you guys. Because he's like making the case from the Democrat side of the aisle with the Democrats. The vast majority, nearly all of the Republicans wanted to keep McCarthy on, even some who are far more credibly conservative than I'm not saying Matt isn't conservative, but would I rather, put my trust in Thomas Massey, or would I rather put in Matt Gaetz? I'm going to put in Massey or something. So, people like that, wanted to keep McCarthy. I'm going to play Massey's comments and stuff, but he's on the Democrat side of the aisle. And there's a screenshot of Ilhan Omar looking, and I guess she's just licking her lips, and someone just screenshot the right moment. And so there's Right to Bear memes had some good memes out. I'm gonna show you one. I mean, there's another one that I have to find that was kind of like the boyfriend meme. Like the first time I saw the screenshot, someone had Ilhan Omar, and she's kind of, you could see interesting face where it looks like she's kind of looking at him and licking her lips. And someone had retweeted it and said, "That's not your brother." And there's another one where they have it like the boyfriend meme, when the boyfriend is looking at the other girl and the girlfriend is upset. So let me see if I can find that real fast. I thought I bookmarked it for you guys. Yeah, okay. Oh boy. Right to Bear memes strikes again. Yeah. So interesting. Anyway, let's get to the serious stuff. So he's upset at McCarthy, says he's not keeping his promises. And they ousted him. He threatened it and he followed through this threat. McCarthy, in order to get his speakership, which he went through like 18 votes initially. He had people had this power for like a single member could bring it to the floor, and they did, and Matt did it. And again, he sided with the Democrats and a couple of other Republicans, one of them being Nancy Mace. And I don't understand Nancy Mace. I'll play you a clip of some of the stuff that she's saying about why she flipped on McCarthy, but he did help her in her race and gave her some money and raised money or whatever for her. So that's gotta, no good deed goes unpunished, I suppose. But let me play you guys a bit of what was going on the floor. Here's Matt Gaetz talking a bit about about the situation.
I don't think voting against Kevin McCarthy is chaos. I think 33 trillion in debt is chaos. I think that facing a $2.2 trillion annual deficit is chaos. I think that not passing single subject spending bills is chaos. I think the fact that we have been governed in this country since the mid-90s by continuing resolution and omnibus is chaos. And the way to liberate ourselves from that is a series of reforms to this body that I would hope would outlast Speaker McCarthy's time here, would outlast my time here, and would outlast either of our majorities. Reforms that I have heard some of the most conservative members of this body fight for, and some of the reforms that we've been battling for that I've even heard those in the Democrat caucus say would be worthy and helpful to the House, like open amendments, like understanding what the budget is. We have been out of compliance with budget laws for most of my life, most of many of your lives. And by the way, if we did those things, if we had single subject bills, if we had an understanding on the top line, if we had open amendments, if we had trust and honesty and understanding, there would be times when my conservative colleagues and I would lose, might be a few times when we'd win. There'd be times that we would form partnerships that might otherwise not be really predictable in the American body politic, but the American people would see us.
Yeah, so there's a little bit but of his back and forth, but Mark Levin went off. I'm going to share with you guys a tweet that he had. I mean, he talked about it on a show, and some people are not happy because he's not happy, and they think just need to be all up on agreeing with Matt Gaetz, and they're like, oh, McCarthy is terrible, etc. Blah blah blah. Let me show you Massey's reply first. Again, Massey is pretty legit and has really stood up against excessive spending, including in the Trump era. It's I know people talk about spending a lot, especially when there's Democrats in charge who are going to sign these bills, but How much did you make hay and fuss when Trump wanted to sign and get a lot of these big, bills passed? So Massey, was someone who was upset about some of the COVID funding, and people were so mad at him. And Trump wanted, to get rid of him. It didn't work out too well, but he's a pretty principled person. You might not always agree with him, but I don't think anyone can really say that Massey is not principled. So let's listen to Massey talk about McCarthy here.
Minutes to my very good friend from Kentucky and fellow member of the Rules Committee, Mr. Massey.
The gentleman from Kentucky, Mr. Massey, is recognized for 2 minutes.
Mr. Speaker, as the only still serving co-author and co-sponsor of the motion to vacate Speaker Boehner, I can tell you this motion to vacate is a terrible idea. As the only member who's serving here who took every chance to vote against Speaker Boehner and to vote against Speaker Ryan, I can tell you that this chamber has been run better, more conservatively, and more transparently under Mr. McCarthy than any other speaker that I have served under. As a member of the Rules Committee, one of three conservatives who were placed there out of trust, the Speaker gave us a blocking position by putting 3 of us on there to keep an eye on the Rules Committee, to make sure the process was fair and even. I can tell you it's been fair and even. None of us are voting against the Speaker today. Regular order is at odds with predetermined outcomes. Yet the Speaker is being accused of not holding to regular order and predetermined outcomes at the same time. It is not possible. You cannot be for both at the same time. I was a party to the January agreement, and I can tell you that there were promises in there, but there was never a promise for an outcome. There was never a promise that you could force Joe Biden to sign something. There was only the promise that we would try, and try we have. We have tried in the Rules Committee. We have tried on the floor. We've been trying this since the summer, and there's enough blame to go around for why we don't have 12 bills, but part of it was a relitigation of the debt limit deal. By the way, there was no promise on the debt limit deal, no conditions on that in January, 0 whatsoever. I was in the room for that. So the 12 bills were delayed over what? $100 billion. That's a lot of money. But it's nothing compared to the $2 trillion that I came here to object to when Speaker Pelosi and President Trump pushed that bill through. We've had over 500 amendments. Listen, this is a referendum on this institution. We have tried regular order. Speaker McCarthy has tried regular order. If regular order fails today, if you vacate the Speaker, nobody is going to try it again.
Gentleman's time has expired.
This institution will fail. Please do not vacate the Speaker.
Well, he tried, and they did indeed vacate the Speaker. Again, there's no Speaker right now. Let me show you something that Nancy Mace said after all this, and I don't get her at all. She's one of the more liberal GOP people. We talked about her not too long ago because she made some comments about being with her fiance in bed before she went to the prayer breakfast. But she said she told the prayer breakfast this stuff too. But Nancy Mace is more liberal than a lot of other GOP people. So it appears that she voted against him because he didn't push for, I don't know, more gun control and other things like that. I mean, she's upset about particularly some rape kits. And I don't know the particulars of that bill and what went down or went down. And I can understand, especially with her background, being upset about that. Is that a reason to not have a speaker and to have all this confusion, to look, silly in front of all the Democrats and the world? I don't think so. I think you keep pushing what you want, but if there's things that she wants that are on the more liberal side, then she needs to be shot down. She needs to be shot down for such things. So Nancy Mace is a interesting character, certainly.
For women's rights since before I ever came to Congress. And when Roe v. Wade was overturned, I continued that fight. And I made deals with Kevin McCarthy, with the Speaker, that he has not kept to help women in this country. And we have done nothing for them. And I come from South Carolina, and when you shake my hand and you make a promise and you don't keep it, there are consequences to those actions. And as a woman who has been fighting my party on this issue, to be made promises that we're going to work to get women greater access to birth control, and we don't do it, and now we're 10 months in and we don't have time to do it, or as a survivor of rape, and I worked all year on a rape kit bill that hasn't seen the time of day, I cannot tell you how frustrating that is as a woman in this conference, in this Capitol, to have that happen. Like, if you make a promise, you should keep it. And if you promise women you're going to help them, then you damn well better do it.
So, I am a woman. So I will, she spoke as a woman, 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 as a woman. You heard her. But I will say, as a woman, things that impact men also impact women, like inflation, the high gas prices, the crime, other things like that, the border. So getting a hold of those issues and are, I don't know, more important than, I don't know, Congress guaranteeing I have easier access to birth control, which I don't need because I'm not married. So I say that as a Christian, though Nancy Mace claims to be one, but better to marry than to burn. So she should, I guess, stop dragging her feet with that. But abstinence is free. Condoms aren't, I don't think they're that expensive. I don't think birth control is worth ousting McCarthy. And when she says other stuff like women's issues and she brings up Roe v. Wade, what does that mean? Is that like you want some kind of compromise on abortion to get women into the party? Because women care about a lot of the things that men care about, especially when those policies impact their kids and impact their families, and they don't know how they're going to put food on the table because everything is so expensive. And Republicans are really blowing a huge opportunity. The economy is really bad. People's perceptions of it is bad. It doesn't matter how many Biden officials try to go on TV and try to say it's so good. Inflation's, it's not as high as it was. It's not 11%. It's, it's this much. So it's gone down, but 3%. Like, no, that's not how it works. Inflation is, prices are still going up. Maybe the rate of inflation isn't as high, but the inflation is still high. Prices are still high. And, people trust Republicans more, according to polling that's come out recently. They trust Republicans more to handle this issue than they do with Democrats. We talked about the terrible crime the past couple of days. We talked about the border situation the past couple of days. And Republicans are primed to be able the ones to pitch themselves as, okay, we need to change. We can't deal with this chaos, but you need people who can govern competently. And so people are looking for security and competence. And one of the reasons that people did vote for Joe Biden, they were foolish to do so. They're foolish to do so, but they wanted what they perceived to be all this chaos to kind of come to a close. They didn't want to hear all the antics of the Trump administration. And he tweeted what, and the media saying this and that or whatever. Now, of course, the media would go on and amplify and make it seem like it's chaos every day. I mean, they did stories like, is he afraid of stairs? Did he pee on a Russian prostitute? And all this kind of weird stuff that obviously wasn't true, but Trump did at times make his own problems. So a lot of people just kind of wanted the noise to turn down, and they wanted something that seemed stable. And Joe Biden pitched himself as the let's get back to good governance. Let's get back to like normalcy. That was his pitch. That was his pitch that he made from the basement. Of course, it was a lie. And if you knew Joe Biden's background, you know that he's someone who will lodge bombs and disrupt things in order to, advance ahead, etc. I mean, what they did to, Clarence Thomas and so on was not a normal good thing to do, which Joe Biden was very much a part of that. So, but that's what people thought foolishly. And they're like, okay, he's the safe sort of option. Let's go with Biden. And of course, Biden just, and there were moderate Dems or just Democrats who felt that way as well, obviously. And it wasn't just they're voting for their party. They felt like out of him versus like Bernie and a bunch of other folks, he felt like the safe option to them. And he wasn't the safe option because all these like ultra progressive things are still being passed through him, and he's still like the conduit to all of these radical things that are going on. So they made a big mistake. I think it's very hard for people to admit that they made a mistake, but a lot of people are at least saying they need a change, or they trust Republicans more on particular issues. Now, we should have done really well in the midterms, but it didn't turn out too well for us. And I know Trump tries to throw it and blame it at Roe v. Wade. Not everybody who even passed pro-life legislation had a bad midterm. Kemp and in DeSantis, they had good midterms and stuff. So, not everybody had a bad time. There's different, each state had a different set of problems. And I can tell you that, some of it was down to candidates making bad decisions, candidates not being great, etc. Herschel Walker had a lot of drama surrounding him, and you say Warnock was awful. Yep. So, Republicans didn't like the idea of voting for a deadbeat dad who apparently paid for 2 abortions. Didn't like it. So they weren't quite as enthused. You had, Oz was a carpetbagger, and a lot of Republicans didn't like him. And I could go on. So the midterms weren't red like it should have been. It wasn't the red wave they had in some places. Like Florida had DeSantis win by 19, 20 points, whatever it was. Huge victory. Other people didn't see that. And that's why we have this very slim majority in the House. We thought it was going to be a red wave, and it was not. It was barely a success. And so it is very difficult for McCarthy to be able to win and get everybody to coalesce to push legislation through. And he can't always make everybody happy. He made a lot of concessions to people. Like Chip Roy wasn't going to support him, and then they made some deals, and he's like, okay, he made some concessions, so I'm going to support him. And Matt Gaetz really prolonged it, and they eventually got him in, but now he's out, and he's apparently not going to run for it again. Jim Jordan has said that he wasn't interested before, but somebody had to step up. So I guess Jim Jordan is going to run for it now. I don't know how many people are going to back Jim Jordan. I know Matthew said he's going to support Jim Jordan. I don't know how many in the conference will support that. Scalise is allegedly preparing for that as well. But then it's who's going to take over his job. It just throws a wrench into things. If they were that unhappy with McCarthy, they could have just waited a bit and tried to see what their luck was going to be in the midterms, and if they could get some more, a bigger majority of Republicans to pull these kind of antics and stuff. But it's rough when there's so few in number. But Pelosi did it, and people are pointing out that Pelosi did it. She managed like just a 5 Democrat majority, and that's because they're better at playing at the team sport than Republicans are. And principles are good, and a lot of people stand on their principles, and in politics you do have to make some compromises sometimes. But but again, a lot of these people barking, how much did you bark when like if you really care about spending, I'm going to go ahead and point this out. Trump spent a lot of money. They're still his guy, and he didn't want to touch and he doesn't want to touch entitlements. Entitlements is a huge chunk of money being spent, and on principle, Trump doesn't want to touch it. He's running to like the left of DeSantis on that issue, and if that's something you don't want to touch, we're going to continue to keep spending a lot of money. I'm going to show a chart in a little bit that shows deficit with Trump compared to Bush and Obama. But I want to read what Mark Levin said about Matt before I move on. And he went off. I didn't hear him on the radio, but this was him being pretty upset. Let's cut to the chase. Gates is a POS demagogue who repeatedly lied during the House floor debate yesterday, and then, of course, simultaneously was fundraising and collecting email lists on behalf of the people. He insisted that the House failed to bring up 12 separate appropriations bills. The fact is, they could not get them out of committee because Democrats wanted to spend a great deal more, which would have blown up the budget further, and conservatives opposed the bills. It had nothing to do with a refusal by McCarthy to oppose regular order. McCarthy refused to go along with the CR that essentially adopted the Senate omnibus spending agreed to yet again by McConnell and Schumer. Yet Gates kept insisting otherwise. Gates said he's sick and tired of deficit spending and pointed to the 33 trillion debt. I know of a few conservatives who disagree, but what has he done about it? He didn't go on the House floor, certainly not on a regular basis and sustained basis, and hammer away on the outrageous massive spending for COVID funds, which were used for every imaginable purpose other than COVID, and drove the debt through the roof, which, by the way, drop boxes or things like that. That stuff's funded by CARES. Trump signed that. So Trump got played on that. Just, truth is the truth. During his ramblings yesterday, Gates blamed House Republicans who passed the most aggressive bill to secure the border from the ongoing investigation orchestrated by Biden and the Democrats for not securing the border. And the worst to me is Gates working with the Marxists in the Democrat Party who are literally destroying our country politically, culturally, and every other way, then denying it while accusing the former speaker of being the Democrats' speaker, trashing Jim Jordan and Jamie Comer's investigations, accusing Chip Roy of being a rhino, and not uttering one word against Hakeem Jeffries, AOC, or the rest of the reprobates. At the same time, he was frantically fundraising office anarchy on behalf of the people of the Republic, of course, positioning himself as a David taking on Goliath. Gates and others wound up killing the greatest effort to slash domestic spending in our lifetime. 30% worked out with the Senate conservatives who wanted to use the House bill as leverage against McConnell, and now Democrats control it all. This had nothing to do with saving the country, regular order, the debt, etc. This was an unprincipled, personal, political attack led by a demagogue who repeatedly lies and to conservatives and the public generally, and who is the favorite Republican of the Democrat Party and their media. And that was his words, and he's got some followers who are upset because they're just MAGA, 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 MAGA. And it is funny that is so many MAGA people. It's like Trump did endorse McCarthy, and that's a thing. And then some people are like, oh, Trump is wise to stay out of it now. And well, he did originally endorse McCarthy and wanted him to be the speaker. And McCarthy in turn did support Trump, like running for president and stuff, and said good things about him as opposed to DeSantis. So that loyalty didn't get them much there. Again, we have no speaker, and a lot of people talking trash about us and how silly we all look when we should be moving the needle forward on elections and etc. It's hard to get things done when you have such a slim majority and you don't have a majority in the Senate. And some of that is obviously due to bad outcomes in the election. And I could point the finger back at the former president, for his picks and etc. Chip Roy has been attacked for not, I guess, going along with this and stuff. This is him. I think this is from yesterday. He was on the Blaze. There's some strong language in here. Just FYI, he does drop an F-bomb. I didn't have time to bleep it out. So just FYI, he was upset.
I would also argue that, some of our brothers and sisters, particularly in the, MAGA camp, I think, particularly enjoy the circular firing squad. You want to come at me and call me a rhino? You can kiss my ass. Look, I've spent a lifetime fighting for limited government conservatism. I have laid it all on the line. I have not seen my family but for 2 days in the last 30 days. You go around talking your big game and you thumping your chest on Twitter. Yeah, come to my office to come have a debate, mother. You know why? Because I'm standing up for this country every single day. And Steve, I'm not going to give up. I'm not going to go to a nunnery. Because, God damn it, there were people who were buried over in Normandy who deserve us to stand up for what they fought for. So that's what I'm going to do. And all of you fuckers out there who are out there saying what you're saying out on social media, you stick it. I'm going to go down to the floor and do my job, and I'm going to stand up for the people who fought for this country. And I'm going to do it the way I think is right for the people that I represent. That's what I think.
Yeah, he was TO'd. But I said I would share this. So here we go. Deficit spending by president. And we know what happened in 2020. There's some people upset by this chart. And they're like, have you ever heard of COVID? Because I saw this guy that I follow, AG, follow it. He's not the AG of my state, but AG Hamilton maybe is his handle. I don't know. But I guess it's at the top. Yeah, AG Hamilton. He shared this and people were like, oh, have you ever heard of COVID? COVID was, 2019. I mean, 2020. But that doesn't explain why he was spending more than Obama was like in his second term. So, and back in the day when Bush was president, I remember talking about how much they were spending in his administration, and people were like, well, Bush can't really be a true conservative because he spent too much money. And it's just getting worse, and we need to get this under control. And beyond COVID, Trump was willing to spend more too. Because he was pitching, was he not pitching the platinum plan? That had a pretty big price tag, So, and by the way, I had, no beliefs that he would not spend a lot of money. He pees in golden toilets. So that was, I didn't, I guess, vote for him because of fiscal conservatism or whatever. I guess I voted for him for other reasons, and the fiscal conservative is still important. You want people to be accountable and not kind of sell our futures away. But he was obviously better than Hillary Clinton. He was obviously better than Biden. And I bring this up because you don't see this. You didn't see this kind of chest pounding when their guy was in office. And this is still the person that they, want to support. So if you want to come at McCarthy for not being able to get everything done when there, again, is such a slim majority and they don't have Republicans majority in the Senate, what are you going to do, my guy? And now the question is, what's the plan? Who's going to be the speaker? Maybe all this, in the end, having a Jim Jordan push legislation forward, as a speaker will be a good thing if he's the one who comes out on top. I don't know. You could have someone who's not very conservative, who's maybe more in the liberal camp of the Republican Party, who ends up taking the gavel, which I guess that probably won't happen because you'll have people who won't vote for them, no matter what. But I would just hope that somehow, some way, this doesn't result in Hakeem Jeffries, getting the gavel. Which it's funny that Mace voted against McCarthy, voted to oust him because she sure was talking trash about Matt Gaetz back in January. and was saying he's not principled because Matt Gaetz is just kind of like, I don't, claiming, according to her, that he didn't care if Jeffries ended up taking the leadership, and she was calling him out for fundraising, other stuff, and I guess grifting, really, and now she's voted to oust McCarthy for reasons that don't seem great, and she's fundraising off of it too. So it's a mess, but I do wonder what is the plan. But if Republicans can pull it together and just be like the competent sort of choice, there's so many opportunities for Republicans to win. There really, really is. But we'll have to see if they seize on that moment. But Democrats think it's funny, and we're more than happy to oust the speaker. And this kind of thing wouldn't happen on their side, because they understand that politics, especially when you're in a party, independents can feel whatever, and you can vote Republican and not be like involved in party politics or whatever, but it is a team sport, especially when you get into your different caucuses and your conference and your Congress and stuff. It's a team sport. And they understand the rules of the game, I guess, better than we do. So we'll have to keep watching and see what happens. Last thing I want to address with you guys before I let you go, Pearly Things, Pearl Davis, has been going at it with the Daily Wire on marriage for some time. We've already talked about this, and Matt Walsh did a pretty good video about it as well. Ben Shapiro weighed in and did a video about it. I don't know if Michael knows. I mean, he did some tweets. I haven't, if he's done a video or comment on a show, I haven't seen an episode. People have pointed out to Pearl, who's still like railing on this topic. Her thing is that marriage is too risky for men. Why would you go into a contract that is 75%, 50% likely to fail, and then men get screwed, et cetera, blah, blah, blah. And so she's very anti-marriage. People point out that Pearl isn't married, hasn't been married, and has a lot to say, but just because you haven't been married doesn't mean that you can't comment on stuff. But I would assume that she should have a lot of positive things to say, because it seemed like she comes from a big family and is talking about her parents and stuff. And unless it's all garbage, I would assume that she's seen, happy, fine marriages and stuff that have lasted and been worthwhile. I'm thinking about if my mom will agree to it. I know my dad would agree to it. Drop of a hat if I asked him. Just sitting my parents down and just like quoting some things from Pearl and seeing their reactions. It'll probably make a pretty good video. But they've been married for 42 years. This year, at the end of the year, it'll be 43 years. So very good marriage. But not to Pearl, because they both got heavy. They both gained weight since getting married. So I guess it's not a successful marriage to Pearl. So she has very silly metrics, because she'll say even if people stay together, it's not a successful marriage if you're fat or something, and she thinks that's a good reason to divorce. And just she has very weird, flimsy ideas of what a marriage is, but she'll trash women for leaving and initiating divorce, etc. So I could say that Ben, like I said, Ben and Matt, I've seen their replies to her, and they agree that there are things that are unfair or wrong in the structure of like divorce proceedings, but they say it's not really 75% or 50% of where these numbers coming from for your likelihood of getting divorced, and you can mitigate those risks. You can mitigate those risks by and all these guys are religious guys. I don't know in the case of Matt, but I know like Ben, he's Jewish. His wife is Jewish. They were virgins when they got married. They got married young. Those are things that contribute to you most likely having a happy, successful, and long-lasting marriage. And then I'm not saying that religious people don't get divorced or cheat or fail their marriage. I'm not saying that, but you're more likely to find success if you're not promiscuous prior to your entanglements. So it's just the truth. Um, so they say how you live, how you pick your partner, those things contribute to your success. You are not like a helpless person just kind of floating through life. You get hitched and then you're just waiting for a coin toss whether you and your spouse are going to make it. That's not what it's like. But they agreed with much of the things that she talked about. But she wants to have a debate, and she wants to get all these red pill guys on there. She wants the Daily Wire bros to listen to all these men talk about their horror stories in marriage. And I haven't heard her talk about any horror stories from women in marriage. So that's interesting. Not to you guys who probably are familiar with Pearl, because to her, women sucks, it's always their problem or whatever. And she said in the past that she focuses on criticizing women because she feels like people always criticize men and women don't take responsibility or whatever. And she has a big spiel about that. But she's gone really, really, really far to a point where it doesn't make sense, because it's like you'll complain about women being whores, but then you'll be like, you know, men shouldn't get married. So it's what do you what people aren't going to just stop having sex, man. Like, what kind of society are you kind of contributing to and building, and then it just continues to more moral decay. You could talk about fatherless homes. You could talk about the rate of abortion. 86% of people who have it are unmarried. So it leads to a lot of problems. And so a lot of things that the feminist movement that she rails against, or Marxists or communists or whatever things that they push about just destroying the family, she's just doing it now kind of on the opposite end. And a lot of these people, you know how you'll talk about, you'll see people who are like leftists and they'll talk about systemic racism or something, and they'll just look at the results and see some kind of disparate impact, and they'll be like, aha, this thing is bad. We have to destroy the thing. We have to destroy the institution. We have to destroy the system. The system is obviously bad, and et cetera, blah, blah, blah. And they won't look at these sort of variables to see like, okay, more black people are getting speeding tickets. They're like, it must be racism. Or is it that more black people are speeding for whatever reason? Like, if you got to look into the details, and they're like, no, it just must be racism. Like, well, what about accountability within everything? So I was going through, some of the comments under Pearl's stuff, and this woman was going back and forth with this guy about these topics, and particularly the Daily Wire and their commentary on it. And I said, well, let me say what he said. He said, someone said, you do realize that all the videos they've made regarding to your points literally agree with you on 99% of what's been said, other than they believe marriage is worth the risk and you don't. So what's there to debate, really? They've advised ways to mitigate the risk. So that's what a woman said to Pearl after she once again challenged the Daily Wire. And so there was a guy under her who said, because the answer is to still do it regardless of the risk. How dumb would I look telling you to drive a car with a 50% chance that the brakes will go out? You look at me crazy. And I said, the takes from the Daily Wire would be to check your brakes before you buy the car. And his response was, this is why nobody takes pro-marriage people serious. There's plenty of men who did everything close to perfect and still get screwed. And I went to his page and I would start looking through his feed, and this bunch of stuff like ragging on women. It's like anti-women stuff. And there's plenty to say about, I don't know, degenerate sort of hood rat women who have kind of crazy expectations in life. But I point out there are men and women who are good partners in their marriage, and it still fails. But do you think the 50% is full of close to perfect men who made perfect decisions, including before they got married and who they married? You believe there's no way to mitigate those risks at all? And he didn't answer that question. He said, what risk a woman is taking. So he typed that wrong, typos or grammatical errors. What risk is a woman taking when she gets married? And so the other woman who chimed in said, well, we risk being physically abused and killed if we give up our career to raise our children. We risk being trapped in a bad situation with what seems like a no way out. And we risk being left to raise a pack of kids alone. That's true. That is true. Women, I'm sure that people have met women who've been in a situation where they have a bad partner and they are concerned. And maybe you've heard of some woman who's maybe been abused, or I've just heard of so many women being in bad situations and felt like they were trapped and did not know what they would do for their kids. I've heard women who've had, and you guys know I don't like abortion, but they felt like that was the only, that they would rather have an abortion than bring another child that they cannot protect from their father. And I've heard women concerned about that from a physical, like violent place, and also a sexual concern of what they might do. Because you could say the courts will grant custody to women. It's a very concerning thing when you don't know if maybe they're going to grant half custody, and then at some point in time, those people have your kids. So there's risk to women too, but I don't hear these people or Pearl talking about the risk that women take either, or what women can go through. It's all just women are trash. They initiate divorce, especially if they're high earners, and then they screw over men. There's no balanced look at this at all. Just or why these women are divorcing. There's no balanced look at it. And I don't like divorce. I think there could be reasons for it or whatever, but I'm more like you made a commitment, you stick to it. But it's just, there's no upside for men. Women are trash. And that's what she's pitching, and that's what a lot of the people who support her are kind of parroting, and it's just crazy to me. Women also have risks, and women also have reasons. I've heard crazy stories about women going after men, lying on men. There was a baseball player. He wasn't married, but he showed evidence of I can't think of his name, but it's a big story that's out this week because he finally could talk about it. Because he sued this woman who falsely accused him, and he was in the major baseball leagues, and they gave him like a 2-year suspension as all this stuff kind of came out. But she had like he showed text messages of her planning to get him before they even got together in bed. Like she sought him out because he was rich or whatever, and said that he like physically abused her and showed all these marks and stuff, and all that just turned out to be fake. It's a pretty terrible story. So there's crazy women out there who plot stuff and do terrible things, who will lie in court on men to be able to get full custody and all kinds of stuff, and child support, and men get the shaft all the time. I understand. But to pretend like crazy things can't happen to women, this is public information because I guess they wrote stories on it. But Christina Caramo, she's the chair of the Michigan Republican Party right now. While she was running for Secretary of State, there was a story that came out about her husband claiming, and they're like, according to court filings, Christina Caramo threatened to kill her kids because they had whatever, like he wanted to relitigate their custody agreement, whatever. She had full custody, and he claimed that he divorced her because she threatened to kill herself and her kids. And that wasn't true. It wasn't even true that he initiated divorce. She initiated divorce because he cheated on her. He was a serial cheater. So, because she was running for Secretary of State, and because she was a MAGA candidate, the media ran with that. Now, there was some local media that was like, that's obviously a not true story, and they didn't run with it, but that didn't stop like major news, not just local Michigan papers. You can look up the story. They were definitely reported on it. And what an awful thing to happen. But that was her ex, who was a man, lying on her. So it goes both ways. But there's no balance. There's no balance there. It's just the women are the monsters in these situations. When it comes to Pearl and her a lot of people who cheer her on. And it's getting old real fast. So I can understand people at the Daily Wire not really wanting to entertain a debate or discussion between her. They could go on and try to dunk on her, but they don't even disagree with a lot of things. But they're saying the institution of marriage is still worthwhile. And of course it is. Of course it is. And you can mitigate your risk by making smart decisions. My parents made smart decisions before I was a twinkle in any of their eyes. And you can make smart decisions today. That baseball player who got, scammed by that woman, just don't sleep with strangers. That's not an excuse for what she did, but you can mitigate your risks. And you can call it victim blaming, but I'm just letting you know there has to be some kind of accountability somewhere, and you can mitigate your risks. So I want to go ahead and read what Andrew Klaven said to Pearl's comment. Let me go ahead and I guess maybe go back to her tweet first so you guys can see that. But he just, summed it up real nice. And I don't know if any of them will have her on. She's like, well, I'll put some money toward charity and we'll host it on my page. And I had tweeted, I'm like, okay, well, is the money that you will get off of your YouTube page from this debate, will that also go to charity? Because obviously that would be a good video with a lot of views, probably millions, if they agreed to that. So why wouldn't Daily Wire, have that on their channel, one of their main channels, or even behind a paywall or something? So she's not slick. And I think a lot of this is just engagement farming. Because she says the craziest stuff now. But she said, so is that a no from the real Daily Wire to have a debate on marriage? It should be a good discussion. If you want the truth to come out and facts are on your side, why not have it? It is important enough for 4 of your hosts to respond to me. Let's set a date. And again, like they have responded, and they mostly don't disagree, but they're just saying you're not helpless in the situation and you can mitigate your risk. And to just be like, oh, we just shouldn't have marriage anymore until Pearl said, she said that fixing the court system on divorce or whatever, and I guess child who gets the children, whatever, family court and all that should be the number one thing that they talk about on their platform. It should be the number one issue they push. Not all these men are deeply conservative, they're religious, they're married. So they're not going to say, yeah, let's just pump the brakes on marriage until we reform all the courts. So they're not going to do that. They're not going to do, and any reform like that, major reform, would take years, and you cannot just pump the brakes on marriage, and you shouldn't. It's not good for our society. And they will argue that. And they did argue that. But the economy, the border, abortion, all those issues should take a back seat to family court or divorce proceedings and stuff, and changing that system. That is not top tier on most people's list. It sucks when you're going through it, sure. But the most important thing, is that really the most important thing? When there's people are just spilling across the border, and some of these criminal gangs are like in my my county now, attacking out different houses and stuff. Yeah, this is not the number one issue, Pearl. It's just not. So here's Andrew Klaven's response. Long before you or Tate or any of the red pills, I was an outspoken anti-feminist, but also an anti-misogynist. Femininity, with its own work of soul making and homemaking, is a spiritual value, and both the right and left have become materialists. So degrading the feminine sphere And now people can't even define the word woman and think a man in a dress will suffice. So, of course, as Pearly Things has noted, marriage is broken. But to deride the institution and denigrate women, these aren't ideas that can be debated. They're just inarticulate cries of pain from souls in a materialist hell. That's a good line. You can't treat bodies as sex toys and then complain when you wake up in bed with an abusive pimp or a crazy whore. Pimps and whores are vicious people. What did you expect? If we men of the real Daily Wire are too complacent about marriage, I hope it's because we're religious men who understand the value of our wives and honor them accordingly. That makes it less likely you'll have to worry about the broken system of marriage. Just great post. A great post from Andrew Klaven. He's correct. We care too much. We're in a materialist world. Pearl saying we should like marriage is broken or whatever. What's the alternative? People just it's all she went ahead say that one thing she learned about the watching the whatever podcast is a dating podcast, very popular. And she didn't realize how many people are dating to not marry. How many people are dating like it's just a leisure activity, or there's people just kind of hanging out, sleeping with each other, and have no interest of being with that person. And of course people are like that, but she didn't realize how many people I guess are doing that. And I was always raised like, no, you date to it's an interview for who you're going to marry. Like you can hang out with friends or something, but you're dating, and that should be like on track for you to get married or whatever. There's a scripture in the Bible. It's like it's better to marry to burn. Go ahead and get married. People, it's better if you get married young if you can, and you grow up with someone. I think it's easy to grow up with someone you care about rather than you being different entities that have come so settled in your ways, and then you try to mesh into a world together, and it's harder, I think. If people are just dating, and of course if they're dating a lot and they're going to be sleeping around and stuff, there's going to be different and they have no intention of being with that person forever long term. That's how you get a lot of things like about 1 million abortions every year. That's why you have so many people with different daddy issues and different that they go express everywhere inside of every guy, or allow them to express it inside of them. Sorry for being graphic, but I'm thinking about Bridget Fantasies. I can't think of how you say her last name, but she wrote a very good article. She used to write for Playboy about why she regrets being a slut, and people should go read it. But Pearl will ream on women for sleeping around with men, not so much about the men for sleeping around with the women. And then even if they get right and they decide they go to like church or whatever, and they decide to live right, and they're like, no, we're not gonna sleep around. They're like, oh, but you slept around with someone else, and now you and now you're telling people that guy was worth it, but this guy isn't worth it. It's like, or people are trying to make better decisions for themselves, and she'll say that the church is rewarding the whore system because they'll come in and they'll get right, but so you can go around a whore in your youth and then come back and be good all of a sudden. That's not a good way to live your life. But don't trash everybody coming in. And even if you are a virgin, I've seen Pearl talk about you can't even trust virgins because of the internet. And what about these girls who share photos on Facebook and Instagram? And I don't think she's even talking about just women and sharing bikini pictures and stuff. It could just be like you post a selfie or something. So again, I think a lot of this is attention farming, and you can say, well, Christina, why you're talking about it, because I do think it's still an important conversation to have, because the institution of marriage is still very important. And I really wanted to share Andrew Klaven's response to Pearl, because I think he's correct that we are too focused on the materialist world, and we don't see marriage as something beyond a contract, and how much value that men and women both get in it, and also them raising a family together, how much that can change people for the better. It is scary because things can go south, and when things go south, especially with kids, um, that can be extraordinarily terrifying. But is it worth the risk? Look around at society. Is it worth the risk? I think so. I wish everyone could have a family like the family that I have, or at least, I have siblings that I love, and I have parents that that I love, that love each other and love us and love the Lord. And we didn't always grow up with a lot, I suppose. We weren't balling or anything like that, and we really struggled through some things, but we could always say that we had love in our home. And I I grew up with kids who had a lot more means, but they didn't have that same kind of love in their home, and you could feel it. So but again, my parents made really smart decisions before anybody was a twinkle in anybody's eye. And before my mom even met my dad, she made good decisions. They were both virgins when they got married. They've only been with each other. And I like to say that my mom practiced proactive love. And I think that's something that we need to teach. That you make, I say this often, like people say Black lives matter, all lives matter, whatever, your life has to matter. And that means that you make good decisions for yourself that will impact your future positively. And you don't just live in the moment for self gratification. You got to do things that are going to more speak to your soul, and not create this world of sex toys and pimps and crazy whores, as Calvin. I'm sorry, I don't know why I keep saying Calvin Klaven said. So good word from him. And if you take Pearl seriously, I recommend you don't. Or guys like Andrew Tate and other folks like that, because they may say some things that sound good or make sense, but everybody could be say some things that'll make sense. But what is their remedy? And is their remedy going to lead to a better society? Like Andrew Tate is literally a pimp. He's literally a pimp. So I wouldn't um hold any of these people to high esteem. Not for building a successful civilization. Not at all. Because if they could have their way, then they would just be dominant men with the cars and money, etc. But they'd still have, I don't know, harems, all kinds of stuff. It's just a world that ultimately where women suffer and women don't do well. So anyway, thank you guys for joining me. I hope you guys enjoyed the show. Please go to blackteens.com. Check out different content on my website, different articles, different videos, etc. If you like what I do here, please consider leaving a donation at blackteens.com/donate, because it costs a stream, costs to run my website and all that stuff. So if you guys can support in that way, I very much do appreciate you. Check out some of my books. I have 17 that are published right now. 2 are nonfiction, the rest are fiction. I got children's, middle grade, I got young adult, new adult stuff. Here's my book, The Dark Mermaid. You guys can just find me on Amazon. There's my name, Christina Elbar. Find me on Amazon. Check out my stuff. And check out my book, of course, God is Blatantly Against Abortion. And my sister Tina's not in the chat, but she's the one who did the artwork there, and it's so lovely, with the finger of God reaching out to the child. So it covers theology, covers rights, covers science. It's a very well-rounded book. It even talks about how to talk about the ethics of your beliefs without why they're still good even in a world without religion, I suppose. It's, or at least not arguing it from religion, but understanding why it's still necessary for even non-religious people to hold those ethics. So I recommend that you go check it out. And thank you very much for joining with me today. And I will see you guys tomorrow. Please enjoy the rest of your evening. God bless.